where and how at least where and how at
Sorry.
least we're no worries, where and how at least we're taking advantage of AI opportunities right now with our customers. And also, obviously, we support the BMK community, so we're happy to partner, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can do that to help you get started and ultimately get self-sufficient to be able to be monetizing on these types of services yourself. So, um, at a super high level, oh, also, I forgot to mention, if you find this interesting, I do a podcast that's bi-weekly, which very regularly has on it AI leaders. It's there's very often leaders, C-level executives from some of the biggest tech companies and suppliers out there in the world. Zoom, AT&T, Verizon, some of the AI companies we're chatting about. So please do, if you can, take a shot here. We'll also send the PowerPoint out so that you can do that. But I'm hopeful that that's a valuable, half-hour listen for you. It is a commute and or treadmill length podcast for you to check out. So we're not beating you too much, with that. So today we're going to go through a couple things. I mean, one is I think just to give you some stats on what we see going on. Some of it's our own data, some of it's data from our research partner Infotech. Some of it is third party information from CIO Magazine and others. But just a little bit about what's happening right now. How are people actually engaging with AI so that you can gauge where your opportunity is in your business? Um, and then lastly, we're just going to kind of go through some basic plays that you can run. I think we have a tendency. I love what Colin said earlier. We're completely in the hype cycle. Everybody's talking about this, but like realistically, are people doing things? Number one, that two, they are asking you about. That I think three, and most importantly, present you with an opportunity to make money. Really, that's what this boils down to. So these are going to kind of go from like the simplest to the most complicated in terms of their level of engagement. And again, our mission is just pretty simply just to get you thinking about this right now. The reality of it is take the complexity of the tech off of the table for a moment. This is still really about what you all do every day, which is customer has the need. You come up with a way of leveraging technology to fill the need. So the needs portion of this entire discussion is ultimately not a lot different than what you do every day, right? Where you guys are and where you're engaging with your clients. So let's just start by focusing a little bit at the top level on sort of the hype and the opportunity. Sort of where are we? Um, I like to use this slide every year. Our friends at Infotech run a survey to CIOs of varying levels um, on what their priorities are for the year. And what I wanted to share this with you because listen, you may be dealing with large customers who have CIOs and directors of IT. You may be dealing with small customers who, the IT decision maker is also the office manager. I don't know your businesses well enough to know which one that is, but at the very least, the even if the small business is a couple years behind, this is where the thought process is, right? The people responding to this survey are largely CIOs of 500 employee and above organizations. But if you take this, two of the top five things are around AI, right? One is distributing data and AI access, right? Like formally getting my employees access to the kind of things that they're probably, if we're all being honest, doing on their own. Right. And then the last one, number five here, is build exponential product teams to realize AI value. And that's really around just sort of reorchestrating the IT department, if the company's big enough to have one, to focus on the AI opportunity. But if we're really looking at this carefully, the reality of it is all of the other elements are attached to AI as well, right? A future-proof workforce, right? There's AI and zero trust security. How do we proactively mitigate the risks of emerging technology, AI among them, right? So at the end of the day, which is really leading the discussion in most C-level suites, and I think bleeding its way down to the front line. This is a report from CIO Magazine. Foundry is the publisher there, but current activity by AI size. I think we all have a tendency to think that these are big company issues. The reality of it is that smaller businesses are still largely in the evaluation phase, right? And that's effectively what this chart says. On my radar or actively researching, piloting initiatives. That's 68% of sub 1,000 seat businesses right now, right? So that presents the opportunity. There's another look at that. If you look at this a different way, what best describes your organization's approach to AI strategy? 26%, the yellow on the left, no specific strategy, 41% in the process of developing. Oddly enough, the purple in there, I'm sorry, the fuchsia, I guess, at 1% is we already have an outdated AI strategy and we're redeveloping it. But the bottom line is it shows you that it doesn't matter, and this is a very wide survey in terms of size, that everybody's in some form of evaluation, which at the end of the day is where our opportunity is. What are they looking to solve? I think when you get down to the bottom of this list, things get very complicated. But at the top of this list, customers are just looking at this as, I want to see if I can make my employees more productive. I want to have happier customers, which, if you think about it, is no different than most of the technology problems that you are solving for every day, right? At least in terms of the reason why you would engage in them. And then I think lastly, and this is where you all come in, most customers lack expertise. It doesn't matter what the size is. It doesn't matter what the industry level is. Everybody's kind of doing this new. It feels very much akin to, selling internet services in 1995, right? I don't know who develops my web page, right? Is it my ISP or my marketing company? I don't know. Like, we're very much in that bucket of we really don't know where to go for help. And that's, I believe, where our opportunity is. And I think most importantly, and I'm not going to read off logos here, it's just this is why this is so complicated. There's a million tools that do a million different things. They all do a very bad job explaining AI. That's the best part about all the advertising with everybody you see on here. It's all about the tech and not about what it delivers at the end of the day. So that's really what I'm going to try to help you guys hone in on over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. So let's talk about your role. I shared this yesterday with Colette, and he was like, I said, I don't know, is this appropriate? And he said, no, I love this slide. So this is from a friend of mine, Jay McBain, who's an analyst who covers the overall channel community for a company called Canalys, which is now owned by Omdia. That's the channel partners, channel futures kind of publishing group, effectively. All right. And this is a slide that he uses when he presents at, Cisco's sales kickoff, right? And Zoom sales kickoff and all that. But he's talking about kind of how the distribution has changed over the years. And I don't know when you jumped onto this calendar, but I think it's a pretty good one, right? And what I like about it is we're sort of like entering the third epoch of what it is that we do, right? We were selling lots of gear for 20 some odd years. Then we started selling a bunch of services. And now we're in this mode where the growth opportunity for us that's appeared is the one where customers, again, need help, right? Eventually, they're going to have more in-house expertise and we'll be on to the next thing. I don't know what that next thing will be. But at this point, this is really where the growth opportunity is for us. So what's our role here today? What are we trying to do? Number one, our mission is to help our clients and our MSP partners to capitalize on MSP opportunities. And the way we're going to do that today is just share with you some real world examples. We'll talk about tech, but more importantly, we'll sort of, we'll attach it to a customer opportunity. We'll attach it to a real world implication. And we're going to do that by going through sort of 7 effective ways that our MSP partners are leaning in, whether that's on their own or with us. We appreciate that in some areas you might look at us and say, I'll do that. That's fine. Like, we're here to educate as a community, but we can also be here to help you, monetize on services in a couple of different ways if you're not yet prepared or you don't have access from a resale model to some of the platforms that are being leveraged under these solutions. And we'll get to that towards the end, not a commercial again, just really based around the opportunity. So what's number one? And we've been making a lot of hay in this space. It's really around readiness assessments. Most customers, they're seeing this AI, the CEO or the president, even if it's a small company, is saying to whoever the IT decision maker is, we got to go get some of this AI, right? And as technologists, we're like, I don't know, do I buy that by the pound? Like, what does that mean? And what customers are overhead, it's kind of like cloud at the beginning of cloud. Like, I got to go get some cloud. When you'd watch the quarterly earnings report from big, Fortune 50 companies, and they'd be like, well, our cloud strategy is, well, shouldn't you just have a customer success and revenue generating strategy? Like, why are we chasing it? We're kind of back to chasing tech again. So there's a lot of money to be made in just helping your customers figure out what they want to do, even pre doing that work. And there's two specific areas. So one would be in basic readiness assessments. We do a lot of these. In our world, we sort of conduct them with individual customers. They're designed to uncover kind of real world use cases. We charge from anywhere from five to $20,000, usually just based on like how many people are going to be involved and how long it is. I mean, it's honestly, we're just still recouping our hours, but we do it in sort of this art of the possible workshop where we're like, let's just talk about things you do. What's the work that you do that takes too much time? Where are the areas you focus on? Where do you think this could work? Where do you think your employees are using it? Hey, employees, are you using it? And then well, that's section one. Section two, we would come in and we basically evaluate their data maturity, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide. So I'm going to hold that for now. And then ultimately at the end of this, we'll give them an action plan. So we're really like charging for the roadmap, and you guys are going to love this, that we can then ultimately fulfill and make money on, right? That's the great part about doing these readiness assessments. And we're doing a lot of these because for many companies now, it's just a matter of them saying, I have to have a strategy. They may not have the budget yet. They might not be able to create the fiscal justification for doing all the individual projects, but like you got to have written down somewhere on paper if you have an investor or somebody who cares about your business, what your plan is. So, just want to suggest to you guys that just, creating a little bit of a tool set around orchestrating how to have this conversation um, is an amazing way to make money, just kind of upfront. We're going to help you build your strategy. And on the right is just sort of, I pulled that out of one of our slides when we're selling our process. Um, but it's sort of working all the way through, and that route mapping is really the important part. Is getting in front of the end users to help them figure out where they can lean in on AI, because most of the time that creativity's got to come out of the edge. Um, the second part of readiness to think about is really the readiness of data. Um, and there's a lot on here. I'm not going to read it. I think the key for you all to think about is, maybe you installed the server on which they have their network shares. Maybe you sold them, a file sharing kind of service, or maybe you are their Microsoft CSP or a partner where they've got SharePoint and all their storage there. Either way, you're engaged with your customers' data, which means you really have the key for them to unlock AI opportunities. All right. Because any model, and pretty much the entire remainder of this presentation is based on us leveraging, AI, for the most part, large language models to, execute on tasks or to provide answers. And at the end of the day, where most customers' biggest gap is if you were to say, okay, I'm going to inform an AI for a specific purpose, right? Where is the information on which we can inform it? Right? Like AI is not going to make up process. You know what I mean? What it will do is enforce yours if the process is documented. Like an example would be very often, and we'll get to customer service applications as one of the seven opportunities. But like one of the things we regularly say, I'm going to deploy bots in my contact center. I'm going to, remove contact center agents. And then, our next question is, well, how are we informing the contact center agents? And they're like, right? Their agents learned over the shoulder. So what are you informing them of? Well, we can record calls. Are we sure that those transcriptions are all accurate? No. Well, then we're going to need to write some processes down or use the transcriptions to inform. So there's a whole job, without getting too much into detail, there's a whole job around just the idea of identifying data sources to inform AI. That comes probably as a corollary. I'll go back one slide to the top level readiness assessment. You'll see kind of in the workshop details that like evaluate data maturity. Oftentimes coming out of this assessment, we end up on a project of working with them through their data to identify the documents, processes, appropriate emails, whatever that happens to be, sources of data that we can use, structured and unstructured, right? And in many cases, unstructured data, that's the beauty of AI is it can eat all that stuff. You know what I mean? But you've got to be comfortable that the unstructured data is actually accurate. Right. And that's one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later when we get into kind of other opportunities. Okay. What's the next opportunity? And by the way, I should stress, please like questions to Colette. He's gonna hit me on them. Copilot enablement and training. Now, I'm picking on Copilot for a very specific reason, but this could really be any kind of, corporate endorsed large language model opportunity. But the reason I'm picking on Copilot in particular, and this is some good data from that same survey, is that Customers generally prefer, at least at the executive level, to implement AI that's attached to applications they already have. And what do I mean by that? Like if you were going to turn on just an AI chatbot for your employer, for your employees, or for your customers' employees, the customer is predisposed to turn on something that's attached to a platform they already have. If they have Salesforce, turn on Einstein, right? If they have, in this case, Office 365, turn on Copilot. Less disposed to go out and go, let me go buy OpenAI, which is, ChatGPT, which is a completely separate instance, and bring it in and endorse it, right? So it's kind of the easy button for getting customers used to the idea of having chatbots available kind of inside the business, right? AI assistants. So this is another scenario where you can, and this is just sort of a graphic of a Copilot enablement project that we would do. But our suggestion here would be to sort of have a productized engagement where you just go in and you're like, we're going to very much like the other assessment. 2 days, we'll assess, we'll get it stood up, we'll develop the use cases, we'll create governance documentation around it, we'll train the users, right? And those can be one-time engagements. But then post, the employees are going to be able to create freely. Your customer has their peace of mind, but you can ensure security and efficient rollout, which will lead to managed services for you over time, right? And we'll talk about what some of those like kind of next phases are. But turning on Copilot and making sure that it answers in an appropriate way and that you've kind of got data sovereignty and you understand, that what things are being used to inform it are a really important way and a really simple way of doing this. And these are the same kind of engagements. It could be a couple grand, to 10 grand to just get in and help them turn on something they already have. And then obviously, if you are an MSP who's engaged in reselling Microsoft licensing, or maybe you have a path to be able to do that through a marketplace, Copilot, there's some very basic Copilot features that are available inside the Office apps. Um, but full Copilot is a full chat, GPT-like interface in there. And depending on their packaging, can be upwards of $20 a month per end user on which you're getting a commission or a resale margin, right? So, think about the easy button of just saying to customers, turn on what you have, begin to build some AI literacy, but do it within the four walls of your Office 365 because they're going to go off and do it in OpenAI by themselves. And then you're not going to have control over what they're doing, and you're not going to have sort of protection around your data. So kind of an easy button. And kind of the beauty of Office 365 too, with Copilot attached to it, is the data storage is already in it. So it's already permissioned. You can set it to use only my documents or others. Just kind of an easy button entry to begin to get end users using it. And then they'll find the places where there are AI opportunities inside the business, right? Which could be, and this is kind of part and parcel to this, you can do this in ChatGPT. Um, I'm sorry, in Copilot, building custom GPTs and agents, right? So what do we mean by that? Um, we mean by a custom GPT, you may have used the Copilot interface. You may have used, a Chat GPT interface where it's informed off of the internet or informed off of data that you input into it. The problem with that is that the typical access license is a public model. So if you're like, can you analyze this spreadsheet for me? Or can you do this thing for me? You're inviting that, you're putting that data into the public model to inform the rest of the public model. And that's your biggest risk for your end customers is that employees are just going to go do that because they don't understand the implication of that, right? So then if you think about the Copilot model, it's a little bit skinnier. Hey, only on my data in my logical four walls. Let's go a level down even further, which is, can you create in Copilot, you can create copilots, right? Or in Chat GPT, you can create custom GPTs that are just built for a specific purpose. So what would this look like? It'd be the same kind of interface, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. But it's just based around a specific purpose. So it's a conversational bot, but it's got a really narrow information, informed category, if you will. So I love HR for this application, right? Let's put all of our policies out there. Let's put the information on our health insurance carrier, our vacation time schedule for this year, all these things, stand it up, let it inform itself, and have a chat pot around HR inside the business. It's a simple example, but I think it makes the point. So you would go in and say, hey, what are our vacation days this year? Hey, what's the phone number for our insurance carrier? I have a claim. and I have a question on it. Hey, am I allowed to send this file to this end customer? Oh, here's the policy document. Right. So it's basically like taking a chat GPT or a copilot and skinning it down to a specific use case and informing it only with the data that you want to have it be informed. Now, this could be very complicated if your customer tries to do it on their own. Um, I'm not going to present this slide. This is just from that previous deck that I was showing you some data on from Infotech. Um, I think the end result for you is really the ability to do this. Um, once you kind of get Copilot savvy or OpenAI savvy or savvy on some of the platforms that we have in our portfolio to be able to provide commissionable services on. Um, the idea here is if you take a look to the left, it looks very much like any other GPT or Copilot style of interface, right? A conversational bot back and forth. But as you can see from the expertise areas, it's only been informed on certain data, which means that it keeps training very specific, ensuring accuracy, and really able to get. So this is actually for a client around their tech, right? And it was for their support team, made sure it met HIPAA guidelines. It was just a private LLM that was informed only with the documentation that was out there. Significant reduced training time, an immediate return on investment for them. And you can see the kind of questions. Hey, how do I do this? What's my price on? Right? Is this accurate? Customer has this condition, those kinds of things. But it's really where you're controlling the output by controlling the input. And that's part of that data governance strategy that you have out there. Building a custom GPT like this for the end customer could be, hours and hours and hours and thousands and thousands and thousands. And they would have to go out and purchase some public LLM model that then has storage costs associated with it in the whole 9 yards. We could build that, or you could build that into an individual service tier that's just based on the size of the GPT and how much data it's using to inform it. We're kind of getting more complicated as we go up the stack, but this is a real interesting opportunity. And they flow, right? The first one is, um, we talked about was just kind of turning on what you have, right? At the end of the day, and building some strategy, then turning on what you have. And this one is now kind of honing it down to a specific use case. Um, all right, now I want to move to, the slightly more complicated tier, right? If you were able to build with your client kind of private large language models like this, we're talking about on the custom GPT, and you're like, these are really decision makers at the end of the day. You could keep them really skinny. What would it look like if we were able to combine a series of them and make it look like an application to our end users, right? And this is really where kind of AI driven process automation comes in. What you're seeing on the top left is a custom built application that for an end customer that was developed on a platform called Seeker. They're a partner of ours, and we do deployments on top of Seeker. But all kind of the iconography down the left are individually trained GPTs. So as opposed to like if you were to build out a custom application like this, you'd be building out writing software, or their developer would be for every situation, right? When I do X, do Y, have this be good criteria, et cetera. Where in this case, what you're doing is you're training models and you're just building access out to the trained model. So this is where you can expand it into, you know, topically, you're looking to identify sort of time-consuming manual processes, even if those involve systems. Like this one, there were four people just crunching spreadsheets to get to answers, right? So instead of building an application to import each one, they built LLMs that allowed them to just dump the collection spreadsheet in and have it tell them whether it was a good deal or not a good deal, right at the end of the day. So, examples of the kind of things you might think about here are like forms handling, routing support tickets, certainly on the job training and evaluation, maybe of agents or processors or people who are doing things, maybe extracting data from emails or spreadsheets or doing decision making that took humans time, right? And then what you do ultimately is using a combination of these custom GPTs or a conversational AI engine that's doing transcription or something like that, or maybe OCR from paper forms. Combine them together with a low code or no code UI like we're looking at here, And you're talking about building, being able to prototype a very specialized application in a week, 2 weeks maybe, as opposed to spending months and months and hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a custom application where sort of every route, it's a choose your own adventure, but you have to have it mapped out, right? That next page has to be written. When you're leveraging AI for this, you're sort of getting past all of that and just sort of building the UI in front of it. And ultimately, increased efficiency, ongoing services revenue for you guys. But for the end customer, like the app we're talking about here, ended up, between licensing and the application sort of being roughly called, it's a six-figure project within a year, 1 year. And then the next year it reduced because the development time wasn't there, but the ongoing use of the LLM and storage was there. But there were also four people manually doing these before then. So even if it's a 10-person customer of yours, you're like, "Whew, is this too big for me?" No, not really, right? If they're really willing to consider what it might look like to sort of put it in there. You'll see on the bottom calculating risk thresholds, creating what need. Every one of these answers isn't kind of hard coded from an A/B perspective, but actually generated via AI. So it's like rapid application prototyping. And just think about that as the next step up. If I go back, you're like, I've got custom GPTs doing things, and then can I combine them with a UI to build a really specialized application for the end customer that they wouldn't be able to go customize a CRM to do or an ERP to do. Um, so that's another example. I'll stop. Kyle, do we have anything that you need me to address at this point? Any questions in the chat?
No, I think the questions that would come up is from the first three that you mentioned
Yeah.
on the assessment, Copilot, and custom GPTs. Are these things that the MSPs can do themselves? Something that they can roll out? Is there a list of tests or something to do on their own, or is this something that they would need help? And I guess
Yeah,
the
let me just go through the list.
yeah, yeah,
That's a great
perfect.
question. I wanted to have just one slide up. Pardon me, my
Yep.
clicking here.
No,
I got to go all the way back to the intro. All right, that was well ill-conceived. So you look at this list, right?
Yep.
So look, an AI readiness assessment is something that you need to build a framework on, right? So my, but is largely logical. This is like, what are the processes you're doing? What's the data you have? Not hard to do. This is just to help them build that roadmap. Frankly, if you saw one of these done or you engaged with us on one, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? You'd be able to figure that out pretty quickly. Um, I don't know that there's a school for this yet. We're still pretty early. I mean, I mentioned college to you. We have that research partner that we is mentioned in here a couple of times. Infotech has some
Yep.
interesting MSP focused frameworks that are
Mhm.
purchasable. And I still have to connect you to them. That might be something that the teams could lean on you for. But this
Sure.
is really just
Sure.
like people time and a document output. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Is number one.
Yep. Yep.
Number two, I think generally speaking, this is probably pointed towards Microsoft partners, and I'm sure there are many on here. Everybody touches Microsoft.
Yep.
Microsoft does have Copilot certifications that you can do as a Microsoft partner.
Mhm.
Um, so that's an opportunity to chase that. I think custom GPTs, probably not as easy on the other LLMs like the OpenAIs of the world, and maybe Gemini has a program on this. But if you were going to stick with building copilots inside of Copilot, which is what their custom GPTs are, that's probably available. I believe that's available um, in the administrators types of training with Microsoft. Like, as you all know, Microsoft's main mission is they don't want to have to talk to anybody, right?
Right.
Which is
Right.
why we all live here, right? We're all living in this space that they don't want to occupy. So
Yep.
they're all about, powering and enabling you to do that. I think by the time you get up to kind of these next three categories we're going to talk about, these are really ones where you're likely leaning to a partner until you realize that you're going to invest in and get self-sufficient in these categories. But the bottom
Yep.
line is if it's not the MSPs on this call, their customers are going to call somebody else for that help at the
Right.
end of the day, right? So I think we're going to get a little bit headier as we go through the rest of this list, um,
Yep.
but there's still monetization opportunities as a partner to a Bridgepoint or somebody else
Mhm.
to see it done. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm answering that question clearly very broadly. I don't know necessarily who specifically is on the call or where their skill sets are. So,
Yep.
not no meaning to offend there, but I mean the question
Yeah.
is just I kind of reordered them after our session yesterday to sort of put them in like easy button through complexity level,
And I think,
where
one
they
of
need
the
to be done.
things, yeah, absolutely. And I think, the other thing is that if they implement some of these things, like just a basic AI readiness assessment or a custom GPT on their own MSPs, I think that'll get them a good start of understanding of what that looks like. And then, getting on a call with Ali or somebody else to sort of deep dive into what else they can do for their clients would probably be another enhanced step, would you say?
Yeah, you nailed it. I mean, we in a lot of ways. I mean, I'll use an example of a custom GPT that we're in process actually of training, which is in our world we've got sellers and MSPs all over the country who work with us to gain access to you know commissions on subscription-based services with all the big providers out there. Okay, who may become part of a professional services or managed services solution with an MSP. That's a lot of data, and their services are changing all of the time. So we've spent years and years and years trying to build a structured database way of doing like selection within a criteria or searching for data. You know what I mean? And
Right.
ultimately, we've got a portal where our suppliers, Zoom can come in and upload the capability, documentation on the capabilities of their new CX platform, as an example. We do a ton with them in that category. But like knowing every feature, like I can't structure that data in our CRM and make it reasonable. Like
Right.
we've got 250 suppliers. I'd be doing that every day, right? But
Yeah.
what we are testing, and our CRMs and our sales tools are all based on Salesforce.com with a community's customized interface on it. So it's all in there. So we're in the process of training an Einstein model that just goes in and crawls through the PDFs of the suppliers and crawls through the PowerPoints that they put up there and the structured data that they have in the CRM so that you can just say, hey, I'm looking for a blank tool that does blank blank and integrates with blank. Boom. You know what I mean?
So, yep,
Come
yep.
back that way. That's a perfectly good example of a custom GPT with a conversational UI.
And I guess to build on that, a good place for the MSPs maybe to start off with is create this custom GPT for their documentation platform. Like
Great
what
idea.
firewalls, what configurations, who's using this Comcast, who's using this. A quick sort of analysis or just a custom GPT for that will be an easy, low-hanging fruit for them just to get their toes in the water, right? Just to dip their toes in the water.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, I can tell you, having built them myself, even for internal uses, like if you are an Office 365 user today and your data, these, what the customers have, your spreadsheets, your procedures, that kind of stuff is sitting inside your SharePoint, inside your storage there. Copilot and building custom copilots is a massive easy button, right? Because you're not taking that data and sticking it out on the internet. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Largely,
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
just training your own model and your own stuff. And
Yep,
you can build these kind of honed GPTs to do that kind of stuff,
yep,
training, look
yep,
up customer information. In a lot of ways, it can very much be sort of rapid application development,
yep.
over time to the point where I think that's what gets you, Cal, to this point where you then go, okay, wait a minute. I have enough of these GPTs. Maybe I want to stick them into a UI. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so just the thought process there. But
Yep,
yeah, 100%.
yep.
Any other questions?
Nope,
Okay,
nothing.
cool. I'll cover these last three quickly so we have a little bit of time for questions at the end. All right, so AI and customer service. I only have one slide here and it's very busy. But what I will say is kind of customer service, contact center, if you have customers large enough to do that, this is one of the areas that has probably been the most advanced in this area forever, right? Whether that be conversational intelligence, like recording, building sentiment during a call, throwing up alerts when a call's going sideways, or that's agent assist, which is, hey, my customer said X, Y, and Z. What should I say next? Right? Or what can you tell me about this account? Or what can you tell me about the situation? Or looking up answers, that kind of thing. Or it could actually be intelligent routing where the AI is taking the call, which you're seeing more and more of, whether that be, in text, you'll see that a lot, certainly, in interaction with the company, but even more and more so in voice. And then really from an improvement perspective, there's all the predictive analytics and data modeling. And, so these can be very simple. They can be very complicated. And this Cal, to your point, is probably an area where if you are not a CX expert, I would seek help. Like you're not going to find this tomorrow. But if you have customers, MSPs on this call and others who have a contact center and they happen to mention AI to you, this is a gold mine here, whether that be on services or on commission on, subscription services, we can help you with both. We're doing a ton of this for companies as large as, the largest streaming platforms and automotive manufacturers in the world, right? Uh, but as you may know, on Bridgepoint, we do most of our distribution through our MSP partners. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
we're really set to kind of help you. There's no easy button here. There's just lots of dollars here. So this would be one where I would encourage you to just ask the question. Um, and if they've got a contact center opportunity, sort of kick that through. We'll show you kind of next steps on how to get a hold of us and engage. All right. So I think this one's a big one. I want to dwell here for a few minutes while we have 20 minutes left, and just make sure that we're all on the same page. I'm not sure if this is a starting point or an ending point, and I put it at six for a reason, right? Which is it's the hairiest and ugliest of the opportunities. It's also the opportunity that you have on every single one of your customers, no matter how big they are, which is for all the reasons that we talked about early on. The use of any public AI to analyze your own stuff is exposing your own stuff, your customers' own stuff, right? And I think even if that's not occurring in the business, any business needs to have a stated policy, just like they have, their acceptable usage of internet policy and their acceptable usage of the devices that they are getting from work policy, in the same way that they have employment and, vacation policies. Is that without at least having a policy in place at the customer, they're opening themselves up to exposure because any one of your employees or their employees could upload a spreadsheet with, I'll use Khaled's example of the firewall configuration, right? How was this a good firewall configuration? Obviously, your employees are smarter than that, but maybe not your customers. You know what I mean? So, getting a policy in place is at least a way of ensuring that when the lawsuit comes back, the customer is shown some level of diligence. That's number one. The second thing, and I'll get down into the governance side, um, or the security side, I should say, is there are some simple tools. This is why I said I wasn't sure to start with this or end with this, that you could be deploying right now inside your customers to help them kind of control this process, which I'll show in a minute. Um, I think you all get the risks here, right? I mean, around generative AI, right? Accuracy. This is why we talked about training private models on only data we like, because if you're going to a public model, you have no idea what data has been used to train that, right? Bias. When data is trained from the internet, the content on the internet trains the AI, right? Hallucinations. You've all seen all the funny stories where the AI came back with something that it created some correlation that was never there. Privacy, I think, is the biggest one for your customers to be thinking about, right? Which is just simply that. Without a policy and potentially some protective technology in place, you risk your IP and your customers' private information ending up in public models. Obviously, cybersecurity, the bad guys are using these tools too, right? And then I think lastly, and importantly, I mean, we don't quite yet have legal um, uh, kind of backing on this. Like we don't, there's not good precedent set yet, but at some point, the music publishers are going to start suing the people who are making songs with AI because the source material is copyrighted, right? We're still working through what that's all going to mean, but something to prepare for. Another chart, not going to read it. I guess the point here is just to say that customers are looking outside to folks like you to figure out what they should be doing here. And the opportunity to, just like that assessment at the beginning, just build a simple policy. You're allowed to, you're not allowed to. If you're allowed to, you can only deliver these kinds of information. Having even a two-page stated document that you can charge your customer to help them build around what's acceptable use for AI of their employees is absolutely chargeable, right? Number one.
Mhm.
And number two, completely essential for every single one of your customers to have as part of their IT documentation. Um, Over time, you'll build a framework. This is ours, at least a visual of ours. But the design here is that if you build a governance framework, it's got to include all these things, right? What are the roles and responsibilities? What are the operating models? Where are risks? What are our policies? How do we govern it? What are the tools you're allowed to use? How do we monitor it to make sure that it's right? Right. And ultimately, this is a massive area. When we say security, it's less so security and more so the logic around the governance of helping your customers understand where their risk is and making sure that it's
See.
written down to support that. Um, so where are your opportunities? I mean, certainly one-time consulting engagements around just getting them to understand their risk and write a policy down. You can help them build out those policies and rules. If you were up for that and had the technology and were certified to be able to do so, depending on what you resell or sell, there's opportunities to create and implement the DLP technologies that would prevent data leakage out of the business entities,
Hmm.
but creating usage guidelines, like these are all kind of engagement opportunities for you. Um, and then I think where the really exciting opportunity is on things like monitoring and governance services that may be ongoing. And then I think
Hmm.
lastly, and this is a really good example of where I wasn't sure whether to start with this one or end with this one, but what's becoming very popular, and we have multiple suppliers in our portfolio that we can get you access to that charge the customer directly for the use of the platform, but you can monetize on implementing and also get a commission, right, on the customer's ongoing engagement with that platform. There are gateway services from several providers out there. This is one of theirs who's a partner of ours, is Cloudforce. They have a product called Nebula One, but effectively this is an AI gateway. So what this does is syncs in with the AD, it forces access out through it, and then gives employees opportunities to speak to the AIs, right, that you allow. And in many cases, this can save them from having multiple accounts on multiple AIs. You can get this down to single accounts. There are ways to save money on access to OpenAI or to Claude or to DeepSeek or things like that. But then it also creates a layer since the access is through here where you can create some transparency and apply some basic DLP in there. So it's a way of kind of allowing folks outside of the easy button copilot conversation that I had earlier to sort of control the access out to the models that people are also going out to. And then you'll see kind of here on the bottom, it's sort of a funny example, but like accessibility assistant and basketball assistant and Coursera. These are custom GPTs that are in here, right? As well as the public, GPTs like Mistral and Meta and Claude, et cetera. So this is a simple opportunity that can be, could be in the hundreds to sometimes thousands of dollars a month in subscription revenue to Nebula One, direct bill to your customer, on which you could receive a commission just for helping them get it in place, right? And convincing them they need something like this. But this is sort of an easy button for getting the security and governance going. So,
Nice.
at a high level, number seven. Clyde, any questions? Did you have one comment in there?
Nope, nothing yet.
Okay. Um, Number seven is what to do to get started. So, and again, I threw a lot at you, but we just try to keep it simple. This was designed to just get the brain churning, right? And
Yep.
just, instead of staring up at the mountain, we want you to stare up at a foothill, right? On this
Yep.
guy, and just be thinking about where you can begin to build some of these things into your business. And many of them are not technical. You've got, listen, you're all technical. I don't mean that. Not like where you have to actually do the engineering. There are partners that can help you on that, and you can make money on the consulting around that until you're ready to sort of go on your own. So what I would suggest, number one, is take a balanced approach here. Like don't try to eat the elephant, right? When you're meeting with your clients, at the end of the day, their tactical plan is going to be a combination of, AI, which is the technical piece, but also just kind of what they want to accomplish in their business and also those governance protections that we talked about. Somewhere in the middle of that plan comes out. And this is really what I believe right now, every one of you, with a little bit of thinking and a little bit of elbow grease, is in a position to be able to provide upfront assessments and services around helping your customers navigate at least what they want to do, right? Um, how would you get there? I mean, and this is sort of focused on you, but also kind of the same kind of conversation you would have downstream with your customer, right? I mean, um, if I go through the bullets on the left, at the end of the day, one, AI is not a magic bullet, right? It's a tool for speeding up data-driven decision making, which really, if you go through all of the things that we showed you, that's effectively what this is. You're in,
Mhm.
you're informing it, and then you're using its knowledge to make it easier for you to make decisions or more quickly get access to information or what have you. Second thing, And I think this is a massive, massive opportunity for all of you because you're all dealing with your customers and their storage. AI is garbage in, garbage out, which is why a lot of times you have to be very careful in the public models. They're informed from the internet, right? Um, it still applies to AI, and it's actually even more relevant. So, like, accurate building of data is the most important building block. When I'm telling this garbage in, garbage out story to customers, and they're like, "Oh, AI, it's they're either like, I'm going to go throw everything out there," or they're the exact opposite, right? And they're like, "The
Mhm.
robots are going to take over the world." Did you see that video where the robot said, best thing to save the earth is to destroy humanity? Well, of course it did, because it was based off of the internet and it has the scripts and the movie clips of every movie we've ever written about AI taking over the world. And how many movies did we write that very same line in, right? So, it is tactically not that complicated at the end of the day. What are you informing these models on? So, garbage in, garbage out. Third thing I think is most important is this is not tech for tech's sake. And I think we as an industry owe it to our customers to not do cloud again, which is taking a term and implementing stuff for the sake of implementing it, right? Um, this is really about use cases. And if you can get good at helping customers determine their use cases, they will pay you for the work to help them determine their use cases, right? They just don't know. They're nervous about getting left behind and they hear about cutting costs and saving money and doing all the things with AI. They want to be part of that. It's about helping them identify where in the business you can help them do that. Fourth, we've been talking about this throughout, but don't try to boil the ocean, right? Start small, gain some experience, lay a solid foundation. We're happy to help on any of that. And anytime that you engage with us, there's a monetization opportunity for you, whether that be on services or subscriptions. Um, and then lastly, give it a purpose, right? Like it's got to align with the strategic goals of your business. It's got to align with the strategic goals of your customer's business. So give AI a purpose. And then lastly, again, don't go it alone. We're on here with an offer to help. Rising tide raises all ships, right? At the end of the
Yep.
day. Um, our just when we present out to the outside world, this is a slide, by the way, that we share, and you can be thinking about it the same way. We do consulting, we do workshops, we can provide advisory on what to go buy. We help customers with guided implementation, just a framework you can use as you're thinking about your services. Um, and I think lastly, how would we partner together? I think this is probably evident at this point. Given the comments that we've made throughout. But, if there's a service that you'd like to be able to deliver and you don't feel comfortable and we're able to deliver it, you could resell our service. Or, don't want to be in the middle of that transaction chain, we can build the customer and pay you a commission off of it, right? That's number one. Number two, most of these solutions we talked about, save like the assessments, right? Where the end result is a document, involve implementing on some platform, something on some platform. Most of those platforms are SaaS products that are in our portfolio on which we receive a commission that we would share with you at the end of the day. So there's recurring commission in the SaaS products that are powering most of these solutions. And then lastly, look, we're just here for strategic guidance, right? There's a whole host of things that we do besides AI in data
Yep.
centers and cloud and comms and UC and CX, where we are, designed to be a source for you in the areas where your customers are asking you questions that perhaps, at least today, you don't have expertise. So I would just say, if you have a question, ask it. All right. And we're very attuned to certainly Ali in particular, who does most of his work through MSPs. And he is an equity partner in this business, right? Um, we understand where you guys make money and how you make money, and it's not our intention to get in the way of that. Our intention is that if we can help, you all extend your services, you're going to push it up market. There's more services in other areas where we can help you at the end of the day. And we're largely not speaking to your customers. So at the end of the day, we're gonna be able to help each other there. So with all of that said, one, we can end it with questions, but Colin, you just shot me this
Yep.
slide a while ago. I dropped it in. Do you want to share with us the thinking here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ali's on here, and he's more than happy to get on a call with you guys to figure out what's the best way for you guys to get into, providing AI strategy discussions with your clients. So the link there, and I also put a link into the chat. So anybody who wants to grab some time with Ali, just fill out the form, and and he'll be in touch to sort of, just a complimentary strategy meeting and discussion on the some things that Scott just went through and what's the best way that you guys can do it on your own. You don't need, maybe you don't need Bridgefund. It's something you can do it on your own. Just get on a call, and he's more than happy to jump in there and sort of give you all the information that you need. Ali, do you want add anything else to that?
No, thank you everybody for your time. Scott did a fantastic job encapsulating kind of the world of AI and the art of the possible and how to monetize and work together and just being a value add. A lot of you guys I'm going to be seeing in Chicago on Monday, June 9th, so we can socialize there. I do work with a couple of you already, and we've been assisting your clients. So again, Scott mentioned we're not trying to step on any toes, but where you're not comfortable, please, leverage us. But we look forward to it. Khaled, thank you for aligning this group, this forum. It's been super
Absolutely.
productive, and hopefully everybody's got a lot out of it today.
All right, guys.
Thanks
Thank you
for
very
the
much,
time,
everybody.
everybody. Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it. Thank you, Scott.
You got
Appreciate
it.
it, guys.
Thanks, gang.
All right. Take care, guys.